Luigi Mangione.
Luigi, we got you.
My Luigi, we got. So Luigi Mangione is a person of interest who was picked up in Altoona, Pennsylvania this morning. He was reported to the police by a McDonald's worker that he fit the description of the person who was wanted in the shooting of Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare in New York last week, that we'll all remember has caused a lot of conversation. It's tragic. It is. It brings up talk of guns. It brings up talk of the insurance issues in this country. So it's been a fascinating week or so on that. But there's been a manhunt going on. We've all seen his pictures, and somebody in Altoona saw those same pictures, reported him. The name is apparently Luigi Mangione, and Luigi is from Baltimore, Maryland. He graduated from the Gilman School, which is a private, all-boys, exclusive school in Baltimore, Maryland. He was the valedictorian. Now, again, these are all early reports, and he is not accused of anything yet, Kim. So we don't know exactly what the story is, but he was picked up. He had a fake ID. He had a gun and a silencer similar to the weapon that was used at the killing in New York. And from here we go and we look. It's amazing to me that it took Altoona, Pennsylvania McDonald's to turn him in. If he went to this exclusive boys' school and was a valedictorian and had a persona that at least, the other 100 or so people in his class may have known, that nobody turned him in just based on that, because we have full frontal photos of his face.
Right.
What do we think? I mean, this is exciting police work, and exactly why they issue these pictures, and
Well, they're crediting the pictures with being the reason that this person has now been arrested and is being questioned. One of the things they also found, along with a gun and silencer, I understand, is some kind of manifesto against the healthcare system. We don't know yet about why he feels wronged by United Health, or by the, what the real underlying motive was. Was someone in his family affected? Was care denied? We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there you see on the screen there, these parasites had it coming. This was in the manifesto, the document. It says, I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done. Again, I mean, this is why there has been sympathy for this shooting, not without remorse and regret over the loss of the life of a father and whatnot, but there has been sympathy because people are so at odds with the healthcare industry in this country, how healthcare is run in this country. It's a massive issue, and this may be a flashpoint for it. I mean, look at people who assassinated and killed to try and make points. It's very often crazy people, but it's very often people who, I mean, you go back to Gavrilo Princip killing Franz Ferdinand to start the First World War. I mean, there are people that have had enough and do this, and it doesn't justify it, but the sympathies are there. I mean, people, when John Wilkes Booth killed Lincoln, there were people who were sympathizers to the Confederacy who said this had to be done as well. And this political and sort of violence to make a point is certainly something we've talked about now in the country for a while. So it's interesting. So Mangione is also a folk hero now to a lot of people.
I guess so. And what's interesting is, I guess there are all these, when there's a big case like this, there's these internet sleuths that pop out, and they track down websites, and they help police, and they look at the bus schedules, and they do all this internet sleuthing for the police, and then they contact the police with information. And what's interesting is the regulars that do these types of things, that help crack cases, they sat this one out. They all said, no, we're not going to help you find this guy. To what your point was, which is there is an outpouring of, I guess, sympathy is really the word for this man and what his reasoning may have been. So.
Yeah, I think that's what as somebody said, it's called him Robin Hoodie. That's Jules T in the chat saying Robin Hoodie. Yeah, in a way, look, I hate guns. I can't condone this kind of violence. irate over the system that we have here in the country, over healthcare, and that's a totally separate issue. I don't know that assassinating someone is the right way to take care of it. He did not write the laws.
Mhm.
He probably exploited them, and for that it's reprehensible what these healthcare companies do, and so there must be something in Luigi Mangioni's past, and we should keep reiterating. The newsman in me says that we're not going to call him the suspect, and we're not going to
Yeah.
say he hasn't been indicted for anything. But there's got to be a motive. We don't know what the motive is, and
Yeah.
when you hear him say it had to be done, this isn't, generally speaking, you don't just sit. I mean, he graduated said high school in 2014, which makes him probably about 28 or 29 years old now. You don't just sit around thinking about how bad the healthcare industry is unless it's touched you in some way, I'm guessing. And so it'll be interesting to hear what the genesis of all of this is, and then how he's dealt with. There is something, like we said, something folk hero-ish about him.
What I thought was interesting about the case, and I don't know if over the weekend you saw the story that they found a backpack in Central Park they thought that this person discarded, and it was full of Monopoly money, that's somehow some kind of message to what's going on as well. I thought that was kind of interesting. But what
I
was
mean,
also
he
go
could
ahead.
have used it to buy hotels and houses, but
Yeah,
whatever.
it's true. No. What was
Seems
also
to waste.
what's also interesting though is that this guy, I don't know. I feel like there was an insurance decision recently about from a different healthcare company, Anthem Blue Cross, and they reversed it kind of right in the middle of this whole shooting. They weren't going to pay for extended time of anesthesia. If you had an operation, there was going to be, they would give you, a certain number of time that you'd be anesthetized, and then if whatever went over time, you'd have to pay out of pocket. And this shooting happened, and then they backtracked along with an outcry of, "Oh my God, are you serious? You're really going to do this to us?" Right? But
Yeah.
it just seems, I don't know if it's related at all, or if the threat of violence or the anger of people, the kind of reading the room affected the decision on that, and that maybe this violence played a role. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. And there's a lot of conjecture, and it's a really interesting conversation. And
Mhm.
you know, if something happens from this and it is actually the catalyzing event to huge changes in healthcare, and that is pie in the freaking sky. But if
Mhm.
that's what happens, then something good will have come out of something horrendous here. I think the brazenness of it is what brought us into it in the first place. I mean, if this
Yeah.
guy had been killed at home, nobody would have really thought about it. In the middle of New York City that he did this, and it was so well thought out. What I would criticize our friend Luigi for, if this is in fact, I shouldn't
Oh,
call him.
Luigi.
There's Luigi right there. That does,
Oh,
those,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that might be the man who shot the gun, and he's got his little
I wonder how many
Mexican
people
dongle.
from his life looked at that picture that the police put out and thought, "That kinda looks like Luigi."
No, I know. And that's what's so incredible is that
Yeah.
that's where we are.
Yeah.
But also, why is he in Pennsylvania? I mean, I would have thought the guy would be in Zihuatanejo at this point. Like that there's no, to be somewhere like in Western Pennsylvania, and at this point seems like that's not the bet.
Yeah.
Like everything he did worked except for that. So unless he wanted to get caught.
Maybe he felt and was buoyed by the outpouring of support. Maybe he thought, the internet sleuths aren't even on me. I got
Yeah,
this one. The public is behind me on this."
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. I mean,
Mm.
uh, uh, if he thought he had a lot of fans, but he also is smart enough to know that fans don't make the laws in this country, and that he
Sure.
would go away from murder for the rest of his life now if this was him. So I don't think. I'm just shocked that he's still in the United States. I thought once he had escaped law enforcement, he would have gone. I mean, at the borders, obviously they're looking for this guy, but I still thought that he would have been someplace else.
Well, it would have been tricky because now at every airport they have the facial recognition, right? And they had pictures of him. So he probably thought, well, I can't go to the airport because I'll get caught. So how are you going to get off country? Maybe a boat? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, you could walk across the bridge in Juarez. I mean, there's so many ways to do it where you're really not looked at very carefully. I mean, I shouldn't say that to the fine people who work on the bridge in Juarez, but I've been back and forth many times across that bridge for work,
Sure.
and it's pretty easy to get through. But yeah, there is a lot. I understand also his misgivings about a lot of people have his picture up on the wall right now. So there is that difficulty, and getting on a plane, clearly not easy. But I do think, like he could have gone across the Peace Bridge outside of Buffalo, or gotten in a car with somebody and just been a passenger. I mean, there's so many ways of doing it.
Karen says you need to go to a country with no extradition agreement with the United States.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there is that, right? I mean, there is that issue that he would have once he got to where he was going, especially if it were Canada or Mexico. But there are not a lot of countries to go to other than that, unless you get on a raft and go backwards. I don't think there's, but this is the only place where his plan went awry. You would have thought that he would have had this like down to a science. Like, he did it so early in the morning. I'm coaching him now. He did it so early in the morning. That he could have just gotten into a taxi and gone to the airport, like taken his bike to the park, gotten into a taxi, which apparently he did, and went to the Port Authority. He could have gone to the airport before they had these pictures and they had this knowledge, and he could have been to one of those extraditionless countries that one of our viewers was talking about. So we don't know it's him. There's a lot that points to him in what we hear circumstantially now, and I imagine that it's better than likely that it's him. And then, who would have thought a McDonald's worker who maligned all the time McDonald's workers, especially when it comes to talking about minimum wage? Maybe they really should be raising that federal minimum wage.
Altoona Mickey D's, did the big orange one make fries there? Is that is that the McDonald's where he stopped? I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Yeah, he was. Sorry, we don't know actually. It happened in somebody wrote, it's Jake Gyllenhaal preparing for a role. I thought that's
he does look like him.
He does. Yeah. I think. Well, I mean, it happened at McDonald's. He was found in Altoona. I mean, that's where this is coming from. So I would put 2 and 2 together there. We'll bring that back up, Tony. What somebody was saying, that he was in his bio, he worked for.
They said, according to Luigi's bio, he is or was a data engineer with a company called TrueCar. We don't know if that's the case.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, again, I mean, this is the school he went to is about as prestigious a school as there is, and it's not surprising, that is
a fancy looking school.
Yeah, look at the Gilman School. I mean, it's for real.
Nice,
So once at the police station, I'm just reading this now from NBC. Once the police station, the sources said officers discovered Mangione had a gun similar to the one used in Thompson's killing, as well as a silencer and a fake New Jersey ID. And you'll recall that when he checked into the hostel in New York, it was with a New Jersey ID. Suspected gunman allegedly used a fake New Jersey ID when he checked into. I already beat you to it. NBC, 2 senior law enforcement say Mangione had the name Mark Rosario on his fake New Jersey ID. 3 sources familiar with the matter say the suspected gunman checked into the Upper West Side hostel using a fake New Jersey ID with the name, you'll not believe this, Mark Rosario. So it does seem as if we have our man here. And it'll be interesting now to see what happens with him and where this conversation goes, because
McDonald's guy gets a big payout, as Nola Fidian says. There was a $50,000 reward for the shooter. Does the McDonald's guy get the money? I love this comment, because this is what I thought when we heard his name was Luigi. Where's Mario?
Of course. Well, I'm
sure he's gotten that joke his whole life, right?
A person of less interest. I mean that. Right. I mean, again, somebody also wrote, and this is true too, why does he still have the gun? Why does he still have the silencer? What,
Exactly.
like, does he, maybe he wants to be known as this martyr, and he's going to own it, and he's
Right.
giving up his life for the lives of everyone. And
Yeah.
you know, there is that. And that's really, it's interesting.
Says on Luigi's X account, he has a picture of an X-ray with pins in the spine. Is that his X-ray? We don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know, but I mean, it would make sense if it was, right? And thank you for
Yep.
the $5, Wes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Spencer, by the way, also with $5 says, I'm dealing with minor difficulties with this effed up healthcare system. So he's not the only one, right?
No, of course, he's actually, the majority of people do. We have
Right.
huge issues with healthcare in this country. We don't have
Mhm.
single payer. We have it controlled by the insurance companies. We have, we made progress with Obamacare, but it's still left it there for private insurers to rule the roost and how that's doled out. So
Yeah.
there are major problems. So even progress comes with, and you cannot just eliminate private insurers. That's somewhat anti-American, I would say.
Yeah.
But the free reign that they have, and their ability to deny claims. United Healthcare denied 33% of claims. That's absurd. That's an absurd amount of money to people who are struggling just to get by, paying for insurance, having it taken out of their paychecks in many cases, and it's just not the way to go. And then also not getting the care that they're to which they are entitled.
And as Mark mentioned last week, this is a guy who had implemented an AI system that kicked out even more claims, rejecting even more claims. This whole,
Yeah.
not even being reviewed by a human being, the AI looks at it and gets rid of your claim. So, kind of like a money grab, a greed that really doesn't sit well with most Americans.
Right, and that's a thing. And then when we look across the border at Canada, and we look at the United Kingdom, and for all the flaws in the NHS in England, and a lot of people complain about it, and I'm sure their complaints are
Mhm.
justified. It's still better than it is here because it's not controlled by private insurers in the way that it is here, and that's the real issue. And a lot of people. A lot of people are fed up with it, and that's why there's a lot of sympathy for this guy who is, and we should say that Brian Thompson did not write the rules. He did not write the laws. He did not. I mean, he had probably a very well-paying job as a CEO of a wing of United Primary, and that job put him literally in the crosshairs of people
But
who are just fed
what
up.
what kind of person, though, other than someone who is wanting to scoop up all the money, takes a job like that, or does a job like that, puts an AI system in place like that denies even more claims? How can you be in that role knowing the decisions you're making are affecting the lives of people, some of them dying because of your choices? And how do you look at yourself in the mirror every day thinking it's just a job when
Yeah.
you're affecting the it's a life and death job and you're on the side of death?
Right, but they don't think it's perspective. They don't think
Mhm.
they're on the side of death. They think that, hey, we're paying 67% of claims. We're helping
Mhm.
people get well. We are working with drug companies, and we are working with researchers, and we are giving lots of money, and we are employing lots of people, and we are taking care while also making a ton of money. So, and making a ton of money for a lot of people. So I don't know that they look at it as purely altruistic, but I don't think they see it through the same. They look at the 67%, I'm sure, not the 33%, and they look at the role of insurers and what they have
Mhm.
to, do as well, and process and get through. And so uh, I'm not defending it. And he's probably somebody who worked his way up through something and was promoted to CEO of this branch of that massive company, and was pleased about it and qualified for about it, and was making a lot of money, and looking out for number one too. I mean, and I'm not defending it, right? I'm saying that there is perspective clearly in the way that people look at this. I mean, he made he was probably unbelievably disproportionately well paid, and
Mhm.
and he was also, I mean, this guy may not have been the cleanest guy either. I mean, I don't know enough about Thompson. I just know
Sure.
that I'm just talking about John Doe taking that job, and any
Yep.
John Doe taking that job, that's what happens. And it's but it will shine a light on how bad the system is. So bad. And once we know Luigi Mangioni's story, if there is a real tale to it, if it was his mother died because of denial, or
Right.
he wasn't just some warrior for insurance justice, it will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Interesting. A lot of interesting comments too. Healthcare should be a nonprofit, right? Silicon Valley. Um, health insurance could be nonprofit, but they're greedy, says Gordon. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, and Gordon's right. I mean, it could be,
Mhm.
but again, that's a little pie in the sky, because totally reversing an industry that employs that many people would be politically undoable for the people that would have to make those decisions. So the way politics works, obviously, and this is the super smart audience, so I don't need to tell them, but I mean, it's representative government. And wherever there are United Healthcare employees in this country, those representatives are going to fight like hell to make sure that United Healthcare, which, by the way, is a major employer in the state of Minnesota, a massive employer in the state of Minnesota, if you get rid of private insurance, what then happens to all those people and all those jobs into that state? So people are going to fight for it to stay there. They just have to change the rules by which it is done, and maybe sort of gradually take us to the point where we get rid of it. And maybe that's what the viewer meant, because it's the problem is politicians, right? And politicians representing the people that work at these places. The politicians come after the place, right? But if there are enough of them in your district, you're not going to fight to eliminate them.
Tony, do we have the video of the police spokesperson?
Earlier this morning in Altoona, Pennsylvania, members of the Altoona Police Department arrested Luigi Mangioni, a 26-year-old male, on firearms charges. At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police. Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder. They also recovered clothing, including a mask consistent with those worn by our wanted individual. Also recovered was a fraudulent New Jersey ID, matching the ID our suspect used to check into his New York City hostel before the shooting incident. Additionally, officers recovered a handwritten document that speaks to both his motivation and mindset. NYPD detectives are en route to Pennsylvania as we seek to interview the subject further. This apprehension is thanks to the tireless work of the greatest detectives in the world, and of course, the strong relationships we have with our local law enforcement partners. On every level, local, state, and federal, we all serve the same public safety mission. And this case, which captured the attention of an entire nation, is another example of how connected we are and how important it is to work together, share information, and pursue every lead.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I understand she's the police commissioner and talking about how the tireless work of the detectives, but in fact, it was a kid at McDonald's who,
I know.
who turned him in. No, but there was a lot of evidence and a lot of disperse those pictures. But again, there's a flawed healthcare system in this country. It's a mess. And too many people make too much money off of it. Not enough people get covered, and too many people go broke because of it. And so it has to be addressed. And if this is, like I said, I mean, I think I'm really uncomfortable saying that there's a good thing that comes out of the murder of somebody. I don't think that's how you get things done. But now that it's happened, if this changes that conversation to say, hey, this happened because, and we need massive changes, we'll call it the Thompson law, the Brian Thompson law, or the Mark Thompson law. But if it were to happen, and maybe that's tribute to the man who was slain because of it. But who was not the greatest guy in terms of the way he's perceived. But again, this is a massive problem in this country, and a light is shining on it very brightly, which finally it needed to do. So.
Well, it's a story we'll keep following, and it'll be interesting to hear more about the underlying motives and what exactly was in that manifesto and how he's been affected personally by healthcare challenges and insurance companies and whatnot.
Yeah, no, and it's a story that's just only going to develop. We're going to learn about the McDonald's employee. We're going to learn about Luigi.
Yeah.
We're going to learn about his family and what motivated him. And a lot of people are going to be pissed at the McDonald's employee. That sounds crazy, but there's going to be a whole conversation about, hey, he's fighting for you, man. You're working at McDonald's. But
yeah,
I can imagine that's going to happen. So
those rewards get up to a point where it's hard for a McDonald's worker to say no to 50 grand or more.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's true too. I mean, there's a lot of money at it. And I think that is part of what would motivate anybody to do that. And also, a lot of people see it as the right thing, and what to do. So just because you feel one way about a story doesn't mean that everybody does. Anyway, so we will follow that. Okay, so Noe Marie Clarity, thank you. Right, I say thank you for the
We say thank you.
Super chat. I know we say thank you, but what do we call it? The super chat.
It's the super chat. Yeah.
All right, Noe, thank you. Can you give listeners the rundown as to how Reagan's deregulation led to today's healthcare? I mean, the increase in U.S. healthcare's in the 1980s happened because of deregulation. I mean, there's no question. The problem was we were also getting healthier, and so people were living long in other countries, and we were trying to keep up with that because longevity here wasn't happening. So they felt that it had to do with the Reagan era. A lot of people feel it had to do with the Reagan era deregulation that caused this, and so I think that push toward deregulation probably had something to do with it. I don't know, but at that time, you had hospitals, you had healthcare providers, you had medical businesses that, rather than healthcare like providers, which is what they had been for a long time, they became massive businesses because of deregulation, and they were motivated by the dollars much more than the care. And I could see how that would have been sort of the butterfly effect of that here that could take us where we are. And so I'm not specifically well versed on that, but I do know that there was a problem at the time of Reagan, and the deregulation meant that every business in this country every provider in this country could turn into a business and make a lot of money doing what they were doing for a lot less money earlier. And there could be an argument to be said that healthcare insurance in this company should not be for profit. I mean, people who run it should make a living at it, but then that's a conversation I'm sure that's going to come out of all this.
We got another super chat from Luis with $5 who says, when being a D-bag is a pre-existing condition, your claim for compassion and sympathy is likely to be denied, and it's why people are ambivalent.
Yeah, I mean that's a take that a lot of people have, and I get it. Like, look, I'm not defending Brian Thompson. I'm more defending or more uncomfortable saying that you got to go out and kill somebody. A dad in order to make this point, and people will say, they kill people every day by denying claims. Yeah, I can make that connection. It's different, but it's certainly a conversation, and it's a defensible position. I hate guns so much that I don't think that.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.